Okay, so now we're going to work on margaritas, and what I'd like to do for you today is actually we're going to pull apart a margarita and put it back together. What we like to say in the class is that we're demystifying the margarita in the sense that, you know, if you go to one of these major Mexican food chains where they have a book of margaritas, there might be 100 different variations of the margarita in there, but next time after you take this class, or video class I should say, you open up this book at one of these major chains and you'll see their purple passion margarita, and you'll see their blue, you know, vacation margarita, and then you'll see maybe a premium margarita, which is kind of funny once you learn that every margarita is basically built off the foundation of 4 basic ingredients, and we'll get into that today. But before we get into those 4 ingredients, I would like to mention that margaritas they're prepared 2 different ways. Either on the rocks, which means just you pour it over ice, or blended, which obviously you put it in a blender and blend it up. Sometimes the blended one, you might hear it referred to as frozen by your customers, okay? So with that, I'd like to ask, what do you think you would assume your customer wants? Rocks or blended? Because sometimes you don't know, and you may not have worked as a bartender yet, so some of these things you don't think about. But a waitress, and God bless them, they got so many things to think about. They got to remember what the special is of the day, what the soup is of the day, and they'll come to your bar and they'll say, or a waiter, and they'll say, "I'll have a margarita." And you say, "Sure. Did you want that blended or on the rocks?" And they'll say, "Oh gosh, I forgot to ask." So what would you assume? Well, let's do it real quick. Let's say I use this glass and I made my margarita on the rocks, and we brought it out to my customer. "Here's your margarita, ma'am." And the customer says, "Well, I wanted that blended." I think, oh yeah, hold on a second. And I can run back, pour this into a blender, and the drink was not wasted. So our lesson here is anytime you're not sure if a drink should be blended or not, leave it on the rocks, because you always have the option to go back. Okay, so that brings us to the 4 basic ingredients of basically all margaritas, so we'll get to them. First ingredient, you'll see in your recipe there, is tequila. And we're going to get to tequila further on in your book. If you haven't read it yet, you'll see a little history and some great information about tequila. But for right now, we're just using cheap well tequila. So tequila is the first ingredient. Next is triple sec. Then we have lime juice. And the third is sweet and sour. So I'd like to go through all 4 of these individually and just sort of talk about them. First of all, lime juice, there's not a whole lot to talk about with this. It's, you know, juice that tastes like limes. So with that, we'll move on to the next one, which is tequila. Again, we're using just common well tequila here. You can learn about tequila in your book if you haven't read that already, but just right now, just well tequila. Now these 2 are the real magic ingredients for the margarita. First one I'm going to get into is this one, the sweet and sour. Sweet and sour, I like to call this like a citrus aid. If you were going to make this from scratch, you would squeeze lemons, squeeze limes, add water and sugar is basically what this is. When you get behind your bar, you're going to probably, most likely, you'll have a gallon jug of pre-mixed sweet and sour, and then you'll fill these store and pour containers with that. So sweet and sour, there we go. And this one right here is the magical ingredients for margarita. This is where a lot of that flavor comes from. We'll scope in on this a little bit so you can see. Oranges. We got oranges on this bottle here, and that is the main flavor. It's most triple sec bottles that you will see will have some reference to an orange on there. Okay, so triple sec, orange flavored liqueur, and that is one of the main flavors in a margarita. That and a balance of tequila and citrus. It's a fabulous drink. So next we'll go ahead and start making them. Okay, so off to our first margarita here. Just as a note, our margaritas are going to be on the rocks, and we're going to make them in this glass today, although I've seen them made in several different glasses out there at restaurants and bars. So margaritas are going to be on the rocks in the tall glass. So here we go. First one, I'm going to fill the glass full of ice here and get a 4 count of tequila, 2 count of your triple sec, a little splash of lime juice, and I'm going to fill the rest of the way with sweet and sour. Here we go. And this one is garnished with a lime. I like to put a wheel on there. It just makes a nicer presentation. And there we go. There is our first margarita on the rocks.